Hey everybody, welcome to Carpo's channel. This video is brought to you by our sponsor, Nature, the garden. I would imagine you probably haven't heard that one before, but there are a few dozen different companies that it seems like always continuously come up within these YouTube videos that people are sponsored by. And look, I completely understand that people need to eat. And I give props to someone who has grown their channel to the point where they can be sponsored by a legitimate quality corporation, such as some of these video services or, audiobooks, whatever it might be. However, there's a darker side to all of this, and it was really brought to light to me earlier when I was watching this documentary, and I believe it was called Generation Like. And it was about the teenagers of the modern day and what's important to them. And Facebook, I know, is at the center of most people's social networking world. And I've had Facebook on and off since, its inception, but deleted it twice for at least a period of a year. And it seemed like I had to keep joining up in order to get tickets for a concert or to find out when a certain event was happening, because it was this universal thing everyone used. About a year ago, I ditched Facebook again and decided I'm done for good. And in fact, I missed my favorite event of the year, the regional Burning Man out here, because of the fact that I was too stubborn to open my account again on Facebook. And perhaps that's my loss, but I feel I have to stand by kind of what I've seen as a complete downward trend in all social media sites. And the eye-opening part of this, it was the PBS documentary, was when the teenagers, there were several, and they asked them, do you know what it means to what selling out means? And these were all like teenagers who were sponsoring various companies or whatnot in their videos, because these corporations, Hollywood, various industries have learned that they can't market to people the way they used to. And as a 43-year-old adult, I can see through most marketing tactics. But I realize just how immune these kids are, or non-immune, sorry. They were asked, do you know what selling out is? And none of them knew what it even meant. And I was really surprised about that. And one of the girls on there, and specifically, she had spent several hours per day sharing and retweeting these Hunger Games, this game that they had going where every time you would share something you would get these spark points. And she claimed she spent 4 hours or more a day sharing all this Hunger Games bullshit. And the company had, the movie industry had basically used people as their, pawns. The interesting comparison was that the movie itself, The Hunger Games, was based on, that. Kids needing sponsors and needing to be liked and kind of being on their own in this wilderness, if you will. And that's what the real world's like. But when teenagers click on something and they feel like they're part of a community, they really feel like they have 500 friends. And, hearing the desperation in some of these kids, that they just want to be liked and just want to make friends, completely understandable. And it's interesting coming from me, because I can sit here and talk about it as a YouTuber, but someone who, you've never heard me mention a single, in 8 years of making videos, I've never mentioned any type of advertisement or sponsored or tried to sell you anything or any particular product. Sure, I have my herb business, but beyond that, this channel is above and beyond all that. And maybe it's my own loss that I refuse to sell out. That I've been asked by marketing agencies like, oh, do you want us to put our ads on your channel and you can get an AdSense account, and it just makes me want to puke. And when I see what's really going on and how people are being manipulated, these little trending shows, little YouTube shows that pop up, each day, that are like basically the I can't even remember the name of it. It's like not The Inquirer, but that Hollywood show. What is it? E.T. or Entertainment Tonight or Entertainment Weekly, whatever. The show that they would always put, and it's always about what's going on in pop culture. What's going on with Hollywood stars and who's on the red carpet. And now the kids are doing all this for them. But on top of that, kids are kind of obsessed with pop culture. Um, it's it's really sad. Some of these shows that pop up are basically they just talk about what's popular that day. I mean, the algorithm, the what I would guess you would call the analytics of what's going on online are so easy to determine now that you can see what's trending on Twitter. You can make a show about it in about 10 minutes, pop it online, and get the likes, get the retweets, and get famous. And all the meanwhile, a lot of folks are making millions of dollars doing this. And so when a person like me speaks against it and says sell out, it makes me perhaps in some people's eyes appear to be, well, bitter, or maybe you're just jealous because you're not making that money. And I would say that in all honesty, it's a little bit of both. It's the fact that making a channel like this, talking about philosophical ideas, life in general, things that I find are important, it doesn't pay. It just doesn't. It's the way it is. I understand that, and I knew that from the very beginning. I mean, after 8 years, of course I figured that out. After 3 years of having my channel, I decided I was going to start getting into more controversial issues. Started talking about the news, what was going on, a little bit in the conspiracy world. Back then I was into a lot of, still kind of in my conspiracy phase a bit, and I was a prepper, and I noticed on the analytics which which videos got more views, and the ones about certain herbs in specific. But I didn't buy into that. I didn't want to go down that road. I didn't want to trap myself, and that's what a lot of people end up doing. And I guess maybe it's just selling out for a little while for some people. I mean, if you make some bullshit channel where you have all these corporate sponsors and you make a few $1,000,000 in a few years, like PewDiePie syndrome, I guess, then maybe you have the money to go on and do what you want to do with life. But for me, it's really important not to influence kids or adults alike to buy a product that I really don't endorse, or just to make more money for the consolidations and the corporations. I have my own values, my own judgment, what I consider to be integrity, and really that's what it comes down to. When they asked those kids, what does it mean to sell out, and they didn't know, I could sum it up, it's a lack of integrity. Selling out just means that you're willing to put money ahead of what's true to you, or what's important. And in my eyes, that's kind of lying. So in other words, if somebody's sponsoring an audio book company on their channel, and they're a person who reads books on their channel, and they talk about history or philosophy, that's one thing. And that's understandable. They probably would actually utilize it, but if a person's selling a product they've never used, never been to the website, don't even know what it is, which a lot of these people do, they sell you whatever, random things that you would obviously not need. But, if the person hasn't experienced it themselves or used it themselves, and even if they have, it's important. We owe it to each other to be honest about the value of a product. And you see, here's the thing, when a corporation lies about a product, it falls on their shoulders, the claims that they make about it. But when we're selling it for them, it's much easier. They're finding the loophole with influencers, Instagram, and maybe I'm just old school. I don't use Instagram, I don't use Facebook, I've never been on Twitter, but maybe I'm the fool, because the social media giants, it's funny because it's the Silicon Valley crew. They're the same age group, the same people. They are basically we're just teenagers, and there's a lot of irresponsibility in the way that these services have been handled and utilized, and especially Facebook with the Cambridge Analytica scandal. And I think that's one of the worst parts about it. All beyond marketing and sales pitches, if you have Facebook, every time you hit like, every time you share something, that's going in a portfolio. That is part of your personal points, your numbering system, and these advertisers have you in their pocket. And the sad thing is, you need to ask yourself, if you don't care about that, or even if you blame the advertisers, just remember that Facebook was built by the people that used it. Mark Zuckerberg had an idea. We're the ones that built it. It's akin to saying, well, the Wright brothers created jets, or that Ford created sports cars. It's, these ideas were brought forward over generations. So nobody really owns many of these ideas over a period of time. Anyhow, Zuckerberg created an idea, and the people made it what it was. YouTube was an idea, and guess what? The small creators made it what it was. And then YouTube turned its back on its creators, started shutting down smaller channels because they didn't like the controversial material, because it competed with their AdSense program, and their sponsors were pulling out. So it's all about money, and that's the way it is. But Facebook, on the other hand, think about this. They're just a platform for people to post ideas. It's basically just like a blog site, if you will. And the fact that they think that they deserve to make billions of dollars just because because they run the thing, you should really question that. But on top of that, even if they do, you're part of that program. And they willingly have been selling your information to companies in order to peddle you not only just stuff, but false information or a false narrative to support the conclusion that you want to come to feed your bias in a world and a nation that is so divided right now that it's hard to see it ever mending. But I'm hoping for the best, and I'm hoping that it's not a future like, I hate people keep using this one, the Idiocracy, the movie. I was thinking about how the sponsorships were over everything. Mountain Dew and Doritos, sponsored everything, and it was just this kind of the world that we see coming into play. And it's just it's really sad, especially to see young kids that don't know what they're doing, selling out to all these different companies, just dopamine rush all the time, sent all this free shit, everything's going their way, they're making their millions. And then you hear a story about the minute that their followers start to decline, or the minute that they've ended their 15 minutes of fame, all of a sudden they realize that everything that they had worked for, and this is the final part of my discussion here, their entire life and channel was built around extremism. And that's really the sad, most pathetic part. And on that documentary, there was this one skater kid who, he lived in the same room with his parents. They were poor. He started filming some skateboard videos. Next thing he knew, he got some likes, and he got sponsored. Well, next thing you know, within a year, he's making videos with chicks' booties slamming up against his face, and doing prank videos, not even skateboard related, grabbing people's purses, the kind of stuff that's just, obviously for the extremism. It got, millions of views, so he made money off of it, and it's one of those issues where you're like, well, it pulled the kid out of poverty, but he sold out, not just to sponsors, but to, and that part's fine. If he's getting free stuff, that's great, but having to sell out what he wanted to do, skateboard videos, not prank videos. And I see so many people go that route. They want to get as raunchy and extreme as possible, whether it's talking about controversial issues or conspiracies that they don't even believe in. And I'm telling you, there are a lot of channels out here on YouTube where the people who are claiming these things, the conspiracy channels, that don't really believe what they're saying. I guarantee you, 100%. I've discussed with a lot of these people, and you'll come to your own conclusions, but when it becomes about likes and views and ad revenue, then your whole message is compromised. You get to the point where you can't even say fuck off anymore without feeling like you're going to be censored by your ad company. So I guess the fact that I can say fuck shit doesn't really do me any good, since I don't cuss much anyway, but at least when I want to express that it's a bunch of bullshit, I can say as much. Maybe my channel will never go anywhere. Maybe it will slowly build into something grand, or maybe it will taper off. Maybe I'll lose interest, or maybe I'll double down and do something great with it. I don't know. But at least I don't feel tied down to some, soda pop or a product, because I, for one, I fucking abhor pop culture. It's just, to me, just disgusting. And people, I don't understand how people can spend hours of their day, looking at what's going on in Hollywood or with their favorite bands. Now, look, when you're a teenager, I get it, okay? Look, I read Circus, and Metal Edge magazine, and some of these, I was into rock, I was into music, I had my own thing going on, I read comic books. You do what you do as a teenager, but as you become an adult, you have to kind of find some more productive use of your time than worrying about what other people are doing. and just not give a couple fucks. That's a different video I was going to do. The art of not giving a fuck, but that's for a future day. I'll talk to y'all later. Have a wonderful day, and let me know what you think about all the corporate-sponsored social media that we live in now. Be well.